Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate your consideration today. I've known you for quite a while, and I certainly appreciate the many courtesies you've given me, not just since the President's nomination, but long before. It's an honor to be with you, with Ranking Member Warren, and with the entire committee. I'm deeply grateful to President Trump for asking me to take on this public trust, because that's what it is, a public trust. The President believes that real economic growth in the U.S. and real take-home pay will accelerate. I share the President's confidence in our country and its people. America's economic growth potential is rising as we sit here today. I'm also especially happy that my wife Jane is here. She's been with me for many of the most important moments in my life. I'm grateful for her love and her personal accomplishments. I reciprocate that with somewhat of my own love, though I'm a little more stoic than she. And about every 20 years, I reintroduce her to this committee. She sat behind me 20 years ago, and it was almost 20 years ago to the day, and so let me offer today what I said then. Jane, happy anniversary. I'm also thinking of my late mom and dad. They were paying great attention to this hearing 20 years ago. They're no longer with us, but I was always proud of them and the values they taught me, and I hope they'd be proud of me today. We start today with a note of broad agreement, even though we might have heard different narratives at the outset of this hearing. This is a time of great consequence for the nation's economy. As a former Fed governor and friend or colleague of the last 5 Fed chiefs, from whom I've learned plenty of lessons, I'm particularly alert to the challenges and opportunities confronting the institution that I cherish, the Federal Reserve. To the President, to the Congress, the nation, I owe my best judgment and my most faithful efforts in serving the mission that you and Congress assigned to the Federal Reserve, including full employment and stable prices. The American people are counting on the Fed to deliver on its commitments, perhaps now more than ever. The real highlights of my life are not on my resume, as Senator McCormick said. They include the individuals with whom I worked and from whom I learned. I graduated from high school in upstate New York. I had some exceptional teachers there and some brilliant classmates. I've learned we're lucky in life if we start out with good influences in learning and in character. A public school education gave me both of these, and I'm grateful. I made my way to Stanford and found myself in the company of some of the most highly accomplished economists and policymakers. George Shultz, former Secretary of State and Treasury, was among the great patriots at the Hoover Institution, who I came to know as a teacher, mentor, and friend. He passed away right after COVID at age 100, but I still feel him with me. I could not have imagined a better formative experience than working from and learning from folks like him. I could tell you about all the things I learned, but maybe the most important was to be around people completely devoted to the ideas and ideals of our country. Silicon Valley in the early 90s, another fitting backdrop for all of the things we confront today. I found myself in the right place at the right time. The U.S. was at the vanguard of a new era of technological leadership, and I just looked out my door to see it. Now, in the last 15 years, I've gained deep experience in macro and in markets, working with Stan Druckenmiller. He never held a position in government, but is no less a patriot. He never got a PhD in economics, but I don't know a finer economic thinker. Without their guidance and the guidance of Condi Rice, my friend and I should say my boss at the Hoover Institution, I doubt I would be sitting before you today as the President's Fed Chairman nominee. But I'm certain of one thing. Absent their tutelage, absent their example, I would not be as prepared for the urgent, mission-critical task at hand. In between these bookend experiences, I served quite a while ago as a governor at the Federal Reserve. At the onset of the financial crisis. As Senator Warren said, our central bank played an indispensable role, and we benefited enormously from the credibility that our predecessors had built up and passed down to us, governors of the Fed at the time. In these unusual and exigent circumstances, I saw the Fed and its people at their very best. But I also witnessed an institution that was tempted to play a larger role in the economy and society. So let me be very clear. Monetary policy independence is essential. Monetary policy makers must act in the nation's interest. Their decisions the product of rigor, deliberation, and unclouded decision-making. And as Senator Warren said, I do not believe that independence of monetary policy is threatened when elected officials state their views on rates. Fed independence is up to the Fed. That has three implications. First, Congress is tasked with the mission to ensure price stability. Inflation is the Fed's choice. Second, Fed independence is at its peak in the conduct of monetary policy. And third, as the chairman said, the Fed must stay in its lane. I'm committed to ensuring that the conduct of monetary policy remains strictly independent, equally committed to work with the administration and Congress on non-monetary matters that are part of the Fed's remit, and I commit myself to accountability. Finally, I'll just say this, Mr. Chairman. Milton Friedman had a phrase that always stayed with me. He always worried about government officials that lured and hung around with what he called the tyranny of the status quo. Status quo practices and policies are especially harmful when the world is changing this fast. If confirmed as chairman, I will be faithful to the Constitution, to the Federal Reserve Act, and to the very best of the Fed's traditions. I believe a reform-oriented Fed can make a real difference to the American people. And if confirmed, I will seek to create an environment in which the best people do their best work. Candor and goodwill will go a long way in pursuing those objectives. And I suspect this hearing, Mr. Chairman, will put us to the test. It's a real privilege to be here.
Thank you, sir.